in your book, it is possible. Yeah. Charity Ngilu has written something powerful there. And she says, while talking about you, that the only way to know the strength of a tea bag is when it's dipped in hot water.
Yes.
So, when were you first dipped in this hot water? Were you a little girl, or when you're in politics, or when you're in school? Take us back.
Kenyatta just died.
Yes.
That year. And he called an election. And I stood for an election. But you see, I stood against the national chairman of KANU, the only party in the country. And they weren't going to let me just walk into the field and start campaigning and with a bid to bringing down the KANU system.
Yes.
That was the hardest part of my life, really. The other.
So Kisumu, that's where you were born?
No, I was born in South Nyanza, Homa Bay.
Homa Bay?
Yes.
How far is it from Kisumu?
About 100 miles? 100.
About 50 miles, about 30 kilometers.
To Ikondiek, about 70.
It takes a long time
to Kindu Bay, then to Ikondiek. About,
Okay. Is tarmac from Kisumu?
Yes, tarmac all the way to Kindu Bay. That like very, very close. But now they're tarmacking that road. So very soon. You know, development in Nyanza South took a beating when Odinga and Kenyatta fell apart. And of course, after the assassination of Mboya, things just didn't work out for the Luo nation. And then, of course, after Uko, it got so bad.
Yes.
So that development in the Luo part of the country has been intermittently interrupted.
Yes. For quite a period.
Yes, quite a few years.
Because of political vendettas, or if I can use the word. Okay. So basically you're born in Homa Bay.
Yes, I was born in Homa Bay. I was actually born in a beautiful place called Gendia, on top of a hill. And this is where the missionaries first came and settled.
Okay.
When they were looking for places to come and start persuading the African people to join the missionary.
Yes.
And that's where they came in 1906. And it's a beautiful place. And I remember the Second World War, I think must have been about maybe 8 or 10. No, 8. The plane used to fly very low over the hill and then go down to Lake Victoria and land on the water. And we just, because they said it was dege, we thought they were just birds.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it was beautiful. Then we would run down to the harbor to see them loading food to eat into all those places that they again took off.
Yes.
We didn't even know what it was all about.
It was about the war.
Yes, it was about a war, but for us it was beautiful.
Yes.
Yes,
totally
landing and taking off on water, it was beautiful.
That was the world you were in at that time.
Yes. And then, of course, once in a while they would bring cinema to show us how the war was going on.
Yes.
The British were the lion roaring.
Yes.
And the other parties in the war were like snakes, sort of. Yes, and whenever the snake was biting the lion, it would be terrible for us until the time that the lion kills the snake, then we were really, yes. So that is our mindset. That is how we grew up. Yes. Yeah. So the British was the biggest thing on earth. You could, when it was an empire. And
it was the biggest empire.
And in the mind of us, nothing could compare to the British.
It was the...
Yes, because in our mind it was big. The missionaries who came to settle and work there, some of them came from America, others from Britain, and of course the Scandinavians. But the whole system, the governance and everything else was British. And then of course they tried to make us behave like the British.
Yes.
Talk like the British.
Yes.
Eat British food and so on. So yes, it really had a bearing on our minds growing up as children.
Wow.
That's right.
So guys, welcome again to another Bananaland Media episode. And we are honored to have today Honorable Asiyo. That's what they call you. Yeah, that's Phoebe Muga Asiyo.
That's right.
Yes. And those are powerful names actually by themselves.
Yeah.
Yes. And my co-host is actually amazingly a very brilliant lady, Atieno Asiyo.
Yes. My first daughter, my firstborn daughter.
Oh, firstborn daughter.
Yes.
Describe the day you had her.
Oh, in the beginning, it was rough because that labor pain is something I'd never not felt or even experienced in my whole life. Then the impossible happened. She came out and cried. And I just cried with her because she was such a beautiful baby. And all the pain went. I didn't even feel them anymore.
Wow.
I cuddled her, I just loved her. And she and I grew up to be very good friends.
Okay.
And in those days, during the British system, it was not easy to find space where you could grow up with your child. So I used to take her to my office, and I told my boss that I could not live alone in the house with the ayahs, because in those days, children really got burnt when mothers went to the shamba or went to the offices.
Yes.
Because they were left alone. There were no nursery schools in those days.
Yes, and accidents.
Yes, accidents happened a lot. So I took her all the time to my office. And she became part of my office as I worked with the women.
I'm sure your counterparts know her from when she was a child.
Yes, they knew her. And she became part of that system as she grew up and started walking, and it was a good thing.
So, in your book, It Is Possible. Yeah. Charity Ngilu has written something powerful there, and she says, while talking about you, that the only way to know the strength of a tea bag is when it's dipped in hot water.
Yes.
So, when were you first dipped in this hot water? Were you a little girl, or when you're in politics, or when you're in school? Take us back.
Kenyatta just died.
Yes.
That year. And Moi called an election, and I stood for an election. But you see, I stood against the national chairman of KANU, the only party in the country. And they wanted to let me just walk into the field and start campaigning and with a bid to bringing down the KANU system.
Yes.
That was the hardest part. Of my life, really. The other part had been very nice because I grew up, it was very nice to grow up in this missionary village, and where we had everything. We had schools, we had hospitals, we had everything.
Okay.
Now, getting into politics was, sometimes I wish I had not even tried. But now, looking back now, if I hadn't tried and tried to do the things that I did for my constituency and for the women, perhaps it would have taken a little longer to implement some of the ideas that we held so close for the the growth of women and of course of our community.
Oh.
So those were difficult days, but we managed. We managed.
Okay.
That is why Church Ngilu says, put a woman in hot water, then you realize her strength.
Yeah.
Yes.
You realize her strength.
Yes. Yes.
Like a tea bag.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
That is
And
true.
Margaret Schneider?
Yes, Peggy.
Peggy Snyder was, she came to Kenya for a sabbatical.
Okay.
And at that time, we were really trying to put the women together. We had meetings of Kenyan women from all parts of the country.
Okay.
And she was in this sabbatical, so we asked her to join in. And then, of course, we did very well. Then we decided now to expand to East Africa. So we had seminars. Eda Gachuke was very instrumental in this. So did Margaret Kenyatta and other women who at that time were in leadership.
Okay.
And we did very well. We were able to convince women that it was possible for them to enter into political leadership.
Yes.
And help to contribute what they knew best how to do into this system that was male all the time.
Yes, yes.
And when we went to East Africa, it was big because at that time, I forget their names, but there were two very powerful women in Tanzania parliament, Bibi Titi and a lady from Chaga, Kilimanjaro. They were very powerful women in East Africa.
Okay.
And when they came to Kenya to speak to Kenyan women, actually it was a big eye-opener because at that time, we did not have any women members of parliament. Jemima Gichaga came much later, but she was nominated by the British. So maybe she did not take our viewpoints to parliament.
Yes.
But she worked with us in some areas.
Wow. Auma Obama? Is that?
Auma Obama has also written, her feelings and knowing me in this book. She's a young woman.
Okay.
Auma mother was from my village.
Okay.
And she grew up sort of in the village. We knew her.
Oh, so she's known you all along.
Yes, all along. That's right.
Okay. Tell me.
She's done very well in her life. She's set up one of the best centers for growth of young boys and girls.
Oh, okay. You know, I was looking at this picture right here. Actually, you were a beautiful woman.
That was a long time.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the perspective back there. What was this morning, or is this where you were at that point?
No, we were just going to Lodwar to meet with Kenyatta because at that time, 1960, Kenyatta was definitely going to be the first president of Kenya.
Yes.
And we wanted to meet with him before he came out because men were flying in there to meet with him and to discuss about the future of our nation. And no women had been to visit with him. So that was the place where we gathered as we were given this Land Rover by the Chief Native Commissioner. To travel, and there was one woman from every province. So we traveled to Lodwar and met with Kenyatta, and let me tell you, it was an experience of a lifetime because we got there very late in the afternoon, and I remember as we got out of this vehicle with beautiful rose flowers. Lodwar is a desert. There are no vegetables. And you don't even see trees or yes, it's barren. And we came out with all these beautiful flowers and vegetables, greens. Kenyatta looked at us and just shook his head. Because whenever men went to see Kenyatta, they carried files. As we only had one sheet of paper, where we had indicated our wish,
all the grievances and everything.
But we took a lot of green vegetables, potatoes, lots of flowers, you know, and as he came to open the gate for us and he stood back, you know, I've never sort of seen a man taken so deeply by the presence of women.
Yes.
With vegetables and flowers. Because the men just went with papers.
Yes.
But it was different. It really, I was so impressed. Kenyatta ushered us into the house where he lived.
Okay.
It was just bare. There was nothing fancy about that place. And that's where the Kenyatta had spent all these years, since Kapenguria days.
Yes.
And it was not a pleasant place.
Okay.
I know that it was a detention camp, but they could have made a little better for him because he deserved it.
He deserved it.
It worked so hard for a kind of course, the British didn't realize they really wanted to punish him. So they didn't even give him books and things, but he had a lot of literature that he was reading, and as we looked around.
So now that you've touched on that, there is a lot of agreement and disagreement out there on whether Kenyatta really fought for the independence, or is it his other Kapenguria 7 counterparts, or is it people like Dedan Kimathi? He said to have gone to Europe and married a Mzungu there, and then later on came back and eventually did not even go along with the people who fought for independence. Is that such
That
kind
is
of
false.
a truth?
Kenyatta was the symbol
Okay.
of the struggle, was the head of the Mau Mau War. And his voice made a lot of impression over people whenever he talked.
He didn't have to go to the battlefield.
No,
Yes.
no. And people don't know, but you know, some of us who are like teenagers, at the time Kenyatta came out of detention, know the impression that people, whenever people heard Kenyatta's voice, they knew it was a voice of liberation,
Okay.
of a new dawn, of our nationhood.
Na mashamba yetu harambe, na mifugo yetu harambe.
And it was not a joke. People, you know, minimize some of these things, not knowing how it felt at that time.
Okay.
But it was a great thing to even see Kenyatta to shake his hand like we did, and to sit and talk with him. The one thing Kenyatta told us, that he was very sympathetic to the load that African women carried. He really was very concerned about the working hours of the African women, the load that they carried to the market and back, taking care of children,
Yes.
and making sure that there was food for not just the family but also for the community. And he said, you are carrying a very heavy load on your backs and on your heads.
Okay.
But when I come out of detention, my government will make it better for you.
You know, it's amazing that we are talking
Yes,
about
you know, he was very
the
concerned
struggle.
about the plight of the African woman.
So, Honorable Phoebe, it means you are part of the struggle. You fought.
I
Not
was,
necessarily in the battlefield.
yeah, I was part of the struggle in the way that I was a social worker when Kenyatta was arrested,
Okay.
and I was in charge of collecting children whose parents had been detained or killed,
Okay.
and would find homes for them, mainly in the Catholic children's homes.
Okay.
There was one in Dunham in Nairobi where most of the children went to. But there were also times when there was a spillover. Dunham was packed. I had collected these children. I had to bring them to my home.
We grew up with lots of children in our home.
Yes, in fact, my last daughter,
Yes.
because before I found alternative arrangement,
You have to host them.
I had to keep them. And my daughter Juni said she didn't know that water was clear, because whenever I put them in this big bath, of course there was a lot. She thought water was always brown. But it was the most pleasant thing that I did, knowing that I could bring these children, wash them, and find alternative homes for them, because the mothers and fathers were not there. And something that was very interesting, when these parents knew that the children, that they were going to be arrested, they, whatever little money they had, they tied on the chest of their children and put on the clothes, so that only I would know, or the soldiers would know that the parents had written a note giving us the name of the child, his name, and the amount of money that he was giving for the upbringing of the child, which was a very generous thing to do. African socialism, it was wonderful. People perhaps don't appreciate what happened during and after the Mau Mau War.
Okay.
I remember the day that Kenya was set free by the British.
Yes.
We were all in this park, and of course I knew a little about our politics.
Yes.
And I saw the British flag come down and the Kenyan flag go up. I cried because I remembered those children that I had to fend for and find food for and accommodation for.
Yeah.
And also even help the mothers who, were left alone without homes, because some of the houses were burnt completely. Completely burnt. And it was hopelessness around. As you went around, there was a lot of hopelessness. People really suffered. Of course, the Ikui were the target of the British soldiers. But they were indiscriminate sometimes. Like one day in Starehe location where we lived, I used to work there with other social workers. We went to Starehe and we saw this woman being beaten by an English soldier. She was pregnant. And so cruel. The guy took beer bottle and put into the woman's stomach. Yes. And she started bleeding. I wish he had done that to a man and not to a pregnant woman. And then he left. Very cruel. And at one time I thought the guy was crazy. Because how do you do that?
He must have been.
Must have been crazy. Because most British people didn't do this. That was just one man's act.
Yes.
That hurt us so deeply.
Yes.
And because she kept bleeding and we carried her to Pumwani Maternity Hospital. She aborted. But because she had bled a lot, and there were no ambulance. By the time she got there, she had lost her, and she died.
She died.
That broke my heart, and the hearts of all those women who were working with me. So you didn't have to be beaten by a British soldier or to be whipped.
Feel the pain.
But that type of whipping was deeper.
It's deeper.
And really terrible.